Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lindsay Trumbull, and I'm with the Iowa Center for Economic Success. And joining me today is Tennille Register of R7 Reclaimed and the Farm Life Festival here in Grandview, Iowa. And we're here today to present a small business essential on making the most of vendor markets. And she's going to speak to us about what it takes to actually host one of these events, what kind of what goes into that, and kind of the things that you can do to be most successful and get the most out of your experiences when you're showing at these events. So I'm going to turn it over to her. We did send out a quick slide deck in the prompt email just about 10 minutes ago. That links to a deck of slides that you can follow along with as we go through the presentation. And then we will also do some Q&A at the end. So if you've got questions, go ahead and throw those into the chat function, and we will get to those at the very end. But in the meantime, please welcome Tennille.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
All right, welcome. My name is Tennille Register, and I'm located out of Grandview, Iowa, in a tiny town of 300 people or less. So everything about our business model is destination driven. So one of the ways that we've used to build that model and to have a client base is using markets to build our audience. So I always like to say that my first show was an accident. It was sort of decluttering my home. And then my second show was because I really liked that pot of money that came at the first show. And it used to be just a one-woman thing with a horse trailer and me sweating it out like crazy, learning all of the hard lessons. What I'm hoping we can do today is save you from some of those hard lessons by me passing on that wisdom that I have gained over the years. So again, I own R7 Reclaimed. That's a barn storefront destination where we sell vintage home goods, repurposed, we build furniture. And I am also the host of Farm Life Festival, which is our annual event where we host, this year, I think we'll have 75 to 80 vendors. And this year we're expanding from our one location to having 3 stops of vendor locations around our town, all connected through golf cart shuttles and a super adorable trolley. So, any good vibes, prayers you want to send our way. This event is in just 3 weeks on June 24th. And so as both an event planner and host and someone who is doing multiple markets as a vendor still on the circuit, so to speak, I hope that this represents both sides for you. And I love getting your questions. I am a teacher as well. I only teach part-time, just a couple of half days a week now, but I really love education. And so that's how I also ended up becoming a small business coach associated with this. Because of our event that we host, we've had many small businesses start as just sort of an inkling where someone has walked up to me and said, I've kind of been thinking about doing this thing. What do you think? And I've kind of encouraged them to pursue it. They've set up at our events. We've cheered them on as they attend markets. And some of those have their own brick and mortar. And in fact, just 2 weeks ago, one of those who was at our first event actually sold their brick and mortar location so that they can move on to their next dream. So small business is just an important passion of mine, and I want to support you in that. And so I do offer small business coaching as well. And we can talk more about that at the end. And so why do you do it? Why would you pack all of your things in a trailer, take the chance of wind, rain, sweat, tears, maybe blood if things go wrong, for the sake of getting your name out there? Okay, so there's a lot of feedback coming through on the audio. Do we need headphones? Thank you, Daryl, for that feedback. I wonder if it's the room.
It might be.
So what I didn't share with you guys is that we're actually coming to you from one of our 3 locations. And so we're in a beautiful space, but it is still technically a construction space that I'm sitting in today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep talking and let her continue to work on the sound. And anybody who wants to leave feedback, please do that and drop your questions as well. Okay, so why are you going to do this thing? Well, your goal is to become sustainable and profitable while also holding on to the part of the business that you love, right? So that's what we're going to keep in mind as our overarching goal. Okay,
We're just gonna leave this.
all right, hopefully sound is back on. If you'll give us some confirmation, that would be great. Super, thank you. Okay, so as somebody who tackles that, all right, we also have a goal. So when you are researching events, when they're popping up in your social media feed, when you're getting messages and emails, when you're researching where should I attend a market, here's a few things to keep in mind. Who is your host? There are typically, I think, two types of hosts. You have your not-for-profit host and you have your for-profit host. So your for-profit host is someone else who is in business, and this market may be a way to promote their own business as well as its own money-making venture. Then you have your not-for-profit. Those are often held by organizations. Quite a few cities are starting to kind of jump on board with that. And their goal is maybe to create some fundraising, but also some awareness around whatever their organization is. Both can be really good events, but it's important to understand who your host is so that you can see if your goals as a business owner and their goal as a host match up. One thing I will say about those who are for profit, they have the same goal that you do, which is to build business and make money, where not all not-for-profits are going to share as passionately that same goal. So if you have an experienced business person who has experience in the market world, I feel that those tend to be a little more successful event than those who just heard about these events and put it together for the first time. You never know, those can also be great, but thinking about who is your host, what is their purpose, and how does that align with who your customer is and what your purpose is, and then also really getting information about how are they promoting it. If it's ran by a town, is this primarily to get the people of their town out and about, or are they reaching out to other communities to drive people in? For example, I told you that we're in Grandview, Iowa. We have 300 people in our town. If my goal is to get the 300 people in our town to come to the market, you're going to be very disappointed in your sales. So my goal is all about people making what we call the road trip, the R7 road trip, to come from the Quad Cities, from Iowa City, from Burlington, from different cities around us to the countryside, right? Truth be told, the 300 people who live here, a few of them come, but most of them try to leave town for the day when we turn their town upside down. All right. The next thing that you're going to be able to tell from the beginning, from a host standpoint, is what is their style of communication and marketing. So if you get a 4-paragraph inbox to your social media of them kind of explaining why they started this and how they're trying it and how much they loved your stuff and why they would like you to come, they're probably pretty new at this. Not all new shows are bad. Everybody has a first year, but that's a little bit different than somebody who can direct you right to a website or a Google Doc or something that tells you about their event. And then from the event planning standpoint, what I need most from vendors is a clear communication line with you. If I have a procedure to send you to my website and this is my application process, what I need most for you to do is to follow that flow, right? Because even if we're friends, or if I saw you at a farmer's market and I passed on information, if you're interacting with me through social media, through text, through some other means, there's a chance that you may fall off of my radar and that we may fall off of yours, where if you use the systems put in place, you have the best opportunity to share what you do. Now, the application, juried show. Do we have a thumbs up or thumbs down type of feedback we can get from them, or no?
I don't
You don't
know
think-
if we can, other than
Okay.
just through the chat.
All
I
right.
think people can
Very good. So jury show means not everyone who applies is going to get in. They're not going to be a first come, first serve basis. They're going to be who is the best fit for our market. And that process can be not only intimidating, let's be honest, in the beginning, it can be a little bit discouraging because no one likes to hear no. But no is a gift if the host doesn't think that you're a great fit, or if they already have too many of those kinds of vendors. So for example, in our event, we only want a couple of soap vendors, handmade soap vendors. If I say yes to 10 or 12 handmade soap vendors, no one sells much soap. If I pick a couple that I think are a great fit, then those soap vendors do very well. So try to see that a no can be a gift of protecting your sales. And then also, many event vendors, it's going to take 2 or 3 times of applying before you get that yes. So when you apply, it's important to be clear about your product line. What are you selling? Not just I'm selling home goods or I'm selling self-care products. What makes your product really unique? And what exactly am I going to find when I come into your booth? The same way that you might give an elevator pitch, which is basically being able to sell your business in 30 seconds if you were trapped on an elevator with a key player who could change your life. That's the kind of pitch you want to make when you share in your application about what you're doing. Another helpful thing is to have consistent marketing and messages in place, especially on your social media and website, because on that application, you're going to be asked to share those things. And with one click, I want to be able to see what you're all about. And then the third part is make sure that you have a complete and competitive application. What's going to make it competitive? You are, your personality, your style of messaging, your style of product coming through in both the pictures and the words. So those are the things that when you're choosing an event, does your host use these things? Are you prepared for those things? And then when it comes to attending an event, a smooth running event, here's what a host wants from you. Besides the strong communication, clear product line, and strong marketing, we want you to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. You could call it the plan A if the weather's perfect, plan B if it's not, plan C if it's both, if it's terrible in the morning and great in the afternoon, or vice versa. And then also the golden rule. If your space doesn't turn out in the shape or what you thought it would, and you have neighbors involved, or if you're both trying to load or unload at the same time, the reason that people host these things, the reason that people attend these things is they love the way it feels. It's all about the vibes, and the vendors themselves and the approach that you take to doing business side by side is what creates those vibes. So the golden rule absolutely 100% reigns if you're going to participate in this, because it is going to be trying to your nerves. Okay, if you have already done markets, then everything I just said to you is probably a review. And if you haven't done a market before, you might be more nervous than excited. So let's get down to some of what you can do specifically after you have found the right event for your goods. Common mistakes to avoid. I'll send you pictures later. Don't do that. Send me the best pictures that you have right now. And then if you are a maker and you are going to need to make products later, you can send me additional photos, or even better, post them to your own social media, tag your host and your event in every way possible, so that all I have to do is click the share button and promote your business. When people make it easy for me to share them, I will share them over and over again. If I have to go to your website, find your pictures, compose a post, I still will share you, but it's not going to be as frequent because it's a little bit tougher on me. So that's one mistake to avoid. Another mistake to avoid is interacting with your event host too close to the date about your own personal business plan. So what I mean by that is understanding your amount of inventory. Your host isn't going to do that for you. Understanding your booth setup, your host isn't going to do that for you. What your host can provide is answers to questions. What is the size and layout of my booth? How many customers do you see come through the gate? Most of those questions are probably answered in the application itself. So always go back and reread that. And then the sooner that you communicate with your event. So when it gets really close to the event, like me, I'm in crazy mode right now. And if I know that I have some of our amazing Farm Life Festival vendors on here, you guys know I love you. Do not hesitate to reach out just because you watched this. But timing that, we tend as vendors to live for the next show and the next show. And I get that completely. If I'm doing an event on Saturday, I can't think about next Saturday's event until it's Monday. But that means you're also 5 days within that event window for the host. So try to plan your markets in chunks. When you're planning your inventory, if you're doing 3 shows in a 6-week period, try to plan for all 3 shows in that 6-week period. You'll also save yourself loading, unloading, transitioning. Prepare well. Okay, here's some things that you're going to want to jot down and you're going to want to do today if you're in market season. Make yourself a master packing list. If you want to, at the end, I'll share my email. You can send me a message. I probably won't respond till July, but I can reply to you with mine. Things that are on the master packing list. Basic tools like hammer, nails, screwdriver, screws, twine, scissors, markers, extra tags, extra stakes for the tents. I also keep things on my master list like tent, umbrella, bug spray, suntan lotion, everything that you could possibly use. When it comes to staking down a tent for an outdoor market, the little stakes that they sell with your tent is not going to do the job. And I can tell you this because for my very first market, I borrowed a tent and we used those little stakes and we put them down. And that night I got a call in the middle of the night from the event planner saying that my whole tent had gone flying and that all of my tables of displays had come crashing down. Now, all in all, I think I only lost like 2 dishes in a chunk of time. But as an event planner, it was not thoughtful of me for them to have to try to pick up my mess, put my booth back together, make sure that I didn't damage my neighbors' tents. And so have a plan for waits. And one great thing you can do is go to your local farmer's market or go to the next event and walk around and see what options people use. Some people fill PVC tubes with sand or water or cement, and then they tie those down to the top of the tent. We've used cinder blocks before to tie off to, but just really having some of those mechanic basics done will help you because there's nothing more distracting from selling than just trying to survive an event. So have a prepared list of the things that you're going to need. Understand the setup of the event. The times for setting up are probably again in your original application or acceptance letter. Reread that, have a printed copy in your vehicle so that if your brain is starting to panic about other things, you have those basics down on paper and ready to go. There's typically a process for loading in and loading out. And there is usually a rule in place that you shouldn't pull your vehicle up to pack up or to pack up until, no, let me say that again. You shouldn't pull your vehicle up to load until you are packed up. That's really critical so that you're not blocking space. So understand how those things work, and your neighbors around you are going to be your greatest resource for understanding how each event works once you're set up. ask them, hey, how does loadout usually work around here? Hey, where is the vendor parking? Hey, if I need to go back to my vehicle and get more product, what's the best way to do that? So asking those who are experienced with the event can be really helpful in that as well. And then making the most of the event after it's over. It's not load up, count your money, and leave. It's load up, count your money, because I mean, that's how you know if it's a win, lose, or draw day, right? But also pay attention. If you get an online order that week and the address is from the area that you just did a market in, that sale should be attributed to that market when you're doing your calculations. I have some markets that I continually ship online orders to people from that area. And so that's a market that I will always go back to because they feed me year round, not just at market time. Another important thing to pay attention to is sending out that thank you message to both the event planner, your co-vendors, your customers, so that you continue to get exposure beyond that moment. And a great way to do that is taking great photos while you're at the event. So every event you want to take fresh product photos because the outside light is excellent light for taking product photos. So when you have those quiet times in your booth, it is not the time to check your email or read a book. You want to always be on your feet, looking alert, engaged, and lively with your product. So you can bring a stool for taking a little break, but honestly, most of your event time should be standing and interacting so that people don't feel like they're interrupting you if they enter your booth. And so a great way to do that is to spend the time taking photos and videos during the event. Also take pictures of your customers when they buy your product and they're holding your bag. Take a picture of them. When they're in your booth and your booth has that moment where you have like 12 people in a 10 by 10 space and you're like, quick, snap a photo of that and then sell to all of those 12 people. So the way you conduct yourself during that is really helpful, and having a key message of how to introduce yourself. Customers come out to events because they want to learn about your product and about your small business. They actually, in most cases, paid money to get in the door so that they could spend money with you. This is your key customer. So be prepared to tell them a short bit about yourself. Now, you don't want to trap them in your booth with a 10-minute message, but that 30-second elevator pitch. Hey, welcome. How's your day going? All of our soaps are handmade right here on the farm. We use these ingredients. Just a quick bit that lets them know why is your booth significant and why should they stop and check out your product. So the way that you market yourself within your booth makes a big difference. Again, I'm going to recommend that you take a moment and grab your pen or type your notes on your phone, because I want you to consider, how does a customer know who you are when they walk up to your booth? If you haven't done a booth before, then you can just imagine this in your mind. If you've done a booth before, actually think about your setup. Close your eyes. I'm a customer. I just walked up to your booth. How many different places can I see the name of your business, your logo, or your website in your booth? Would you drop that in the comments? How many places and where some of them are in the chat? Someone asked me this question once about our own storefront location. And I was dumbfounded, and it really began to change the way that we did business. And for those of you who are on here who have watched our business grow, then you also know that there was a marked time when we started putting our name on anything that I would say moved, that stood still, but that's not true. We put it on things that moved too. We started putting our logo on absolutely everything. Our most recent, while you're filling up the chat, is on these glasses. It's a nice drinking glass with a leather R7 on it. Cheers to y'all for being on here on this Monday. All right, so I'm seeing signs, price tags, tablecloths. Some people have it directly on their tent, business cards, at your pay table, a banner, on pricing sheets, product labels. All right. So then the next thing is, if I want to remember who you are, is the place that you put your logo picture worthy? Would I enjoy taking my picture next to your logo and sharing it with my friends? Or could I quickly scan it? Do you have a QR code next to your logo that I can very quickly follow you on Instagram or social media or find your website? And so creating a QR code is free and relatively easy. I think the most difficult part is deciding where are you going to send them. The fewer clicks, the better the results. So in some cases, sending them directly to your website seems like a great idea because they can click purchase, checkout, and go. The difficulty with that in a market setting is that if they click out of that tab of your website, they're gone for good. Where if they follow you on social media, you have a slim chance from the social media gods that you might show up in their feed again if they click follow. So you have to really think about what your purpose is. I would say in general, it makes sense for them to either join your email list or follow you on social media from a QR code. But there are times with a particular product that you can have a QR code that takes them directly to that product to purchase it online so that they can have it shipped to them. If you sell, I'm going to go back to the soaps, dog treats, something that's consumable that they will want to purchase from you again when that one's gone. On that product label is a great place for a QR code that takes them directly to that product on your website. If it's a giftable item like a bottle of wine or a cookie mix, having your QR code on there, if I give someone my favorite bottle of wine or my favorite cookie dough mix as a gift and they love it, they now have a QR code where they can just order one for themselves. So really thinking through the calls to actions that you want your customers to take in your booth. Yes, you want them to look around. Yes, you want them to follow you on social media, but what else do you want them to do so that they remember you? So I strongly encourage that you have at least one place in your booth that is a cute place to take a picture. And you can even run some type of giveaway or drawing that if they take a photo in your booth and they tag it with a certain hashtag, that they could be entered to win a $25 gift card for you. The number of followers that you will gain from that will be well worth that $25 of a gift card. So really think outside the box. Another thing to think about is the purchasing process. Is it worth it to spend money on bags that have your name on them? Do you tie your business card to the corner of the bag? Do you put a postcard with it that has information with you? The person who purchased your product can become your lifetime customer. What are you sending with them that makes them want to shop with you for a lifetime? So I know it can be tempting to kind of cut corners at markets because packaging is expensive. But I would challenge you that if they've chosen to spend money with you, you have the opportunity for them to spend money with you over and over again based on how that customer experience goes and to think outside the box. Or inside the box if it makes sense to put their product in it. Check out Uline. They have low quantities that you have to purchase from. They have dating so that you could wait till after the market to pay for it. And local printers might also be an option. So it's going to take a little bit of work, a little bit of effort, but I think it's really important to use that. We talked about sending them with the QR code to your email list. How are you going to get the information of all of the people who walk through your booth? So perhaps if your product that you sell has an average retail of $30 and you sell to 100 customers next weekend and you're thrilled because you made $3,000. Awesome. That's a good day's work. But for you to have that 100 sales of $30, you at least probably saw 1,000 people come by. So of those 1,000, how do you get to interact with them again? Well, like we said, the hashtag giveaway, you might have an old-fashioned write your name down on a piece of paper for an email giveaway, but like something that you can hand them of value that interacts with those thousands also, because it's not always about what we put in the checkout that makes us go back to markets over and over again. It's also the customer contact that we can have. And so be very clear about where you want them to go and how you want them to get there, making your space memorable. The main thing that you have to offer your brand is your face, your smile. Right? How you interact with them is going to be memorable to them. So those are some basics in a big picture view on how to make the most of it. But let's go back to the beginning, because if you have a market 2 weeks from now, and I just told you to have your packaging ready, your QR code, a photo op, a giveaway, your product line ready, a master list of supplies packed into your vehicle or your trailer. Make sure you're alert, awake, and smiling, even if you worked 50 hours at your regular job the day before. That could be overwhelming, and you could say, I'm tapping out of this game. So how do you pace yourself? Where do you go from the beginning that each market gets a little stronger and a little better in this process? So I would love to know from you in the chat, where are you at in this process? On a scale of 1, I've never set up at a market before, and 10 being everything you just said, I'm doing at my markets. Where are you on a 1 to 10? Can they see each other's answers?
And you should be able to.
Hosts and panelists, yes.
Oh, wow, big mix.
What a range. All right. Thanks, Daryl. I'm on a different platform. Like, I think it is actually just Zoom. So maybe I'm not on as different of a platform, just on a different computer. Okay. So you're a new person. Let's start there. The most important thing is some kind of sign, some kind of card that you can send with them. And everyone can have some type of merch that you're wearing that has your business name on it. It makes it easy to identify whose booth it is. They can see the name of your business. I would say the exception to that is going to be if you are in a fashion industry, if you are a boutique, you probably tend to wear your product more than just a t-shirt with your name on it. And that makes sense 100% of the time. But everyone else, what you're wearing can easily share the name of your business. And with all of the small businesses available, it's not like the old days where you have to have 20 t-shirts made to have a t-shirt customized. You could have 1 made, 2 made. I also really recommend, if you're in the early phases, that you try to find a buddy of some kind who can join you at the market. Even if they can't come and spend the whole day with you, do you have someone who could come for 2 hours so that you can, 1, go to the bathroom, 2, eat, and 3, have a chance to walk around and see other small businesses and learn from them. That is one of the most powerful parts of being part of the market community, is being able to interact and learn with each other. Okay, next up, packaging. Where do you budget for packaging in your product? Okay, so if you are working on a profit margin of you need 3 times the cost of your product to make this thing worth it, then how do you layer into it? Well, there's 2 ways to do it. You either raise your price a little bit, or you calculate that by doing this, I'm going to increase the volume, the number of customers that I have. And so what I would recommend is research your ideal packaging and what it's going to cost. Divide that up by the number of customers that you will have at any given market and decide if that cost is worth it. The logistics on good signing. I'm going to give you guys my best secret of 2023. If you've been to a workshop with me already this year, then this is no secret, but I don't know that all of you are taking advantage of it. Walgreens now has a business section in their photo department that offers posters. I particularly like poster board. It's like a foam board, so it's a little thicker. It stands up on its own. And you can use Canva or whatever design, program that you like, and put your logo on there, put your website on there. I recommend putting your face on there. Okay, I don't put my face on everything because I love my face. I put my face on there because people remember me and I want them to remember me. So putting that on there and having a few graphics around your booth, I guarantee you can spend less than $50 next week on Walgreens photo and you can change the entire experience. If your product has some benefits, I think that I saw Hunter Buck and Good antler chews. If you know the top 5 reasons that antler chews are better for pets than rawhide bones, you can put those top 5 reasons on a poster board and have that near the edge of your booth with a picture of some cute pets of all different sizes. It doesn't have to be a real picture. It can be a stock image, and bring people into your booth. There are probably pet owners who have no idea, because until I moved to Louisa County, I had no idea that dogs could use antler chews for bones and could bring that into the mix for them. So I strongly encourage you to think through a corporate place that you shop. No moral judgments on the examples that I give, okay? All right. It's getting to be a dicey world out there. Old Navy. You see families, you see people of all different ages, and you see some of those people within that group of people matching. 100% that Old Navy is a place to get relatively inexpensive things that are a little bit on trend for a wide variety of people. All right. Starbucks, their logo from a mile away. You know what it's going to feel like in their shop, and what it's going to feel like in their drive-through. Chick-fil-A, Target, all of them. You could make kind of a bullet point list of what makes it feel that way. If you're looking for a business name, this is called branding. Okay, you can do the same thing for your booth. If I visit you at the farmers market, and I visit you at Good Makers Market, and I visit you at a beautiful land market in Des Moines, I should get the same experience, even if your product has changed. Hopefully your product has changed a little bit, but it should feel like coming home. It should feel like stepping into something familiar. So what are you creating within your booth that does that? Do you always have sunflowers in your booth somewhere? Do you always have an archway of branches? There should be something consistent that always brings me into it. And I think if you sit down and you think about your brand, you'll be able to list some things I always want my customers to see and feel when they come into your booth. So I think that is one really important part of the branding. Okay, how do you know what's going to sell, right? We've talked about branding. We've talked about making the long-term customer, because that's where I believe the payoff is for markets. But you do want to make money while you're there. So there's a wide variety of businesses, represented here. So I'm just going to give you some general tips. I would say that things that are unique sell when they are represented in multiples. Think about a market from a customer's point of view. I am about to take in 75 to 150 different businesses with different products, with different signs, while listening to music, while trying to drink, while trying to decide what to eat, while also talking to my best friend about how things are going with her kid who just started in gymnastics, right? There's a lot of things going. People come for sensory overload, but how do you break through that sensory overload with a standout product? I think that it's the way you display it, and that multiples of something stop someone, but they don't want multiples of the same thing they've seen all day. They want of whatever your unique product is. So paired with your good marketing and your good signage, think about how you're displaying your product. If I sell t-shirts and my booth is simply 12 different t-shirts, somebody walking by may not be able to read all 12 t-shirts at once and may miss the one that connected with their heart, right? But if it's shown on a mannequin and it's shown on a clothesline, and then there's a little stack of them for me to kind of go through and find my size, I'm more likely to be drawn into that shirt because I've seen it multiple times. The brain has to see something a minimum of 7 times before it even pays attention to it. Yikes. In a 15-second walk by, that's a lot. All right. So simplifying your product line can be really helpful of you being able to sell multiple of the same thing. It's also more profitable for you. Additionally, I mentioned you have your one on your display and then your stack of them. I don't know why I call it this, but I call it the Cracker Barrel theory. And it's because when I'm at the Cracker Barrel, they usually have something on display, and then there's literally a barrel of that kind of candy. And it makes everyone in my family think, oh, they have a bunch of one, I'll get one of those. And so I think anytime that you can gather something where everybody feels like, oh, there's one for all of us. Where else you're going to see this display tactic is in the grocery store on the end cap where they pile up the sodas. It's the same idea. Oh, I'll just grab one of those while I walk by. So being able to differentiate between what is your star product that you only have one of, and what is your product that you could sell to just about anybody. So for example, one thing that we sell is bedding. In a market of 400 transactions, I'm probably only going to sell bedding to maybe 4 of them on a good day. It's a high-end, very specific product. However, if of those 400, I can sell a toothpick holder to about half of them, that's pretty good jam at the end of the day. So really thinking through, what do I have that no one can resist? Everybody could use one. And then what do I have that's like a one of a kind? This is the star of my show. And setting up your booth according to that. Okay. Another thing about booth setup is going to be your traffic flow. When you set up your booth, it should not be based on what works well for you and where you like your checkout stand. It should not be by what you think looks cute. It should be by how are you going to get the customer to really want to come in here, see this, circle that, explore before they leave your booth. So that can be challenging if all you have is a 10 by 10 space. But doing a U shape with something anchored in the middle prevents them from being able to drift to your table and drift right back. They have to follow the U shape if you put something in the middle of that 10 by 10. So I encourage you to really think through your booth space like a pinball machine. Like, how do I get them on the path and keep that? When you go into a retail store of any kind, there has been very careful determination on whether they think you will go right or left, and that when you hit this, will you go this way, and what will you see next? And so even in the smallest booth, you can create a path for the customer's eye, if not their body, on how they're going to move through this process. So think through that as well when it comes to your product line. All right. I mentioned to not set up your booth just because that's where you like to do your checkout. I know that's challenging because this is your workspace. If it was our desk, we want it to be just so. I think if you have a small booth, your checkout should take up as little space in that booth as possible. I don't know of a lot of customers who don't purchase something because they can't find where to purchase it. If they have it in their hand, it's a small enough space, you're going to see them, you're going to want to make that transaction happen. And so try to be as small and efficient with your checkout space as you can. Now, the bigger your booth gets, perks, right? You get a bigger checkout space. There was a time that when we did a 10 by 20, I still set up 10 by 15 of that for retail space, and then gave ourselves that 5 foot for our family space and our checkout space. So if you want a lot of checkout space, then don't get a 10 by 10 booth. Spend the extra little bit of money to give yourself a checkout space. In that checkout drawer, have everything that you could possibly need for the day, including your chapstick, right? Like, so that it's all at a grab. Make sure you have proper change in advance. Never expect there to be Wi-Fi. All right. The amount of money that it would cost to have Wi-Fi big enough for 150 people to be running credit card transactions on the same Wi-Fi is mostly unheard of, right? Hopefully you have Wi-Fi and good cell service, but that's not always the case, especially if you've ever done events in our neck of the woods. And so know how to use your system in advance. Here's what I tell people. Grab 3 things out of your merchandise pile and sit down and pretend you're going to ring them up. Know how to do it in offline mode. Know how to do it if they give you part check and they give you part card. Which probably brings us to the one thing you've been wanting to know. Do I have to accept credit cards? Can I accept only cash? In all of our years of business, we have always had about 80% of sales spent on a card versus cash. So I think there is a time and a growth place for cash only. But if you are trying to grow to more and more sales, like if this is a side hustle hobby and you want the cash, I'm not judging that. But at some point, doing cards is part of business. And although there's a fee from their transaction, right? Actually running the card on your phone is nearly free. And Square, if you're not aware of this, Square just made an update to their app, at least on the iPhone, that customers can now lay their card on the screen of your iPhone to check out without having to have anything connected. So that's awesome. Catch. There's a catch. I'm not sure that that will work if you are in offline mode. It probably still needs a swipe. So think that through. Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. I stopped using Shopify a while ago and I need a Shopify resource. Okay, I want to take some time for your questions because sometimes the questions take as long as everything else. And then if we don't have a lot of questions, I'll give you some more information. So drop your questions. I think I saw one that said, cash, is it worth doing checks? In a market setting, I would say generally, I would not accept a check unless it was a large purchase where maybe somebody wouldn't have that much cash with them. But then you also risk like you're taking a check for a large amount of money maybe in an area with people that you don't know. So I do accept checks, but I would say over the course of 7 years of doing markets, I've probably taken less than 10 checks in the market setting, a few more in our storefront setting. I think the bigger jump is when you move from cash to card. How can we find more markets? Most of what I'm finding are pretty small craft shows that aren't quite the type of event and vibe we're looking for in a place to vend. Yes. This is probably my most common question nationwide. So in my business coaching, I coach some vendors who are from South Carolina, the West Coast, some different places like that. You pretty much, when you want to get to a bigger, better market, also have to increase your geographic location for finding the event. Because a geographic location like Eastern Iowa, even if you include the Quad Cities, Dubuque, Muscatine, Iowa City, we're still a relatively low population area anywhere here in Iowa. So you're only going to be able to sustain so many large events. How to find them. This is where having somebody give you a break and talking to all of the other vendors at a show will change your life. You'll also make friends for life. Asking them, what other shows do you do? Which ones were good for you? Which ones would you steer away from? A good solid Facebook search of like Market Illinois, Market Chicago area, Market Des Moines can help. And then of course, there's the Vintage Market Days circuit that you can go nationwide with if you have a good fitting product, but you pretty much have to be moving toward this being more of a full-time gig, not a side gig. So if you have several products, do you create the QR code for each product in addition to one to the home screen of the website? If you want them to be able to purchase that product again directly, and you have a small product line, I think it's awesome to have a QR code for each product. If you have a wide product line, it may not be reasonable to print a QR code for each product. So maybe it's your top 5 consumable products. And then of course, your main QR code that takes them to your live stream. Maybe work through how you make a QR code. Okay, to make a QR code, if you type into your search bar on Google or whatever your browser is, free QR code generator. It's going to take you to several websites. They're all good, honestly. As long as it's free and it's generating the QR code, it's going to work. There's going to be a place where you drop the link you want the QR code to take them. So that's either your website or the product link or your social media handle, your email sign-up list. Okay. And then you're going to click create and it's going to make you the QR code. And you don't want to screenshot that. You want to download it. And now it's just like an image that you can add to a business card or a poster or whatever you're going to add it to. Also, when it comes to signs, in the beginning, don't psych yourself out. If you just print to 5x7 pieces of paper or 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper and you put them in a frame and you set them out, it's still better than not having anything out there at all. How much should you plan to spend on your tent and booth? I'm shocked at the cost of the different kinds of tent, wall, or grid walls. Great question. I'm not a super fabulous person to answer this because we're DIYers, right? We kind of build our walls and that kind of thing. But I will say our first tent that we used after we stopped the beg and borrow situation, you guys, the first one was a Dr. Pepper tent. That is not okay. Your tent should be plain color. It was the beginning of all of these types of events. So really the event planners didn't know any better either back then. But it should be solid color. I strongly recommend going with white because there are events that will accept white only. Now, I don't love white tents myself, but that's what the event planners want. So our first one was like a $200 tent frame from, it was Menards, it was tan. So some of the events wouldn't accept it or we had to get like an exception or something. And it had nice walls and a pop-up frame. And so I would say that you're going to get a quality one at that. If you're under that price, you're going to probably end up getting like a pipe frame tent, and that is not ideal. Pop-up tent is a critical feature. The other thing I wanted to say about the golden rule of good neighbors at vendors shows, it's very reasonable if you're setting up by yourself or with one other person that you may need a hand clicking the pop-up on your tent, and no one is going to be offended if you say, hey, would you quick help me pop the tent? However, if you have a tent that you've never opened before because you just got it in the mail and you have no idea how it works, and you start to sort of make a spectacle of yourself, not knowing how to put up the tent, people are going to grow a little more annoyed with that situation. Okay. Again, I am maybe speaking from experience. And so I strongly urge you to do a sample setup before a market. And I think that this is best done in a hurry. Not like on Monday, I looked at my tent, and on Tuesday, I set up my tables, and Wednesday after work, I added my product. But like a legitimate 1 hour time clock has started. Let's do this. The other thing I would say is get your setup down. And for the most part, for a market season, keep it. So when we do 6 markets in the fall, we have the same setup for all of those markets. Now, based on whether we're at the end of a row or the beginning of a row, or there's someone behind us or in front of us, we might have to change it up, but we know where things are going so that we're not recreating the wheel with each setup. So I hope that that helps. Walls. If you want your wall to hold your product, you may have to invest more money or make it yourself. If you are simply looking for a decorative backdrop, I would really think outside of the box. Doors, shutters, painter's cloth that is kind of like the tan colored makes a great backdrop if you're just looking to cover up. And you never know. Keep in mind that the person behind you, especially if this is a smaller market that's not highly juried, the person behind you may be selling something that looks terrible with your product, and you may want something to kind of camouflage that. So kind of be prepared with that. All right, I don't think I see any other questions in the comments. So I hope that this has been beneficial for you. I welcome your questions in the future. At the end of the slide deck that we passed on through your email, my email address is there. Feel free to email me. Again, it might be a few weeks right now before I get back to you on that. And then if you want to check out our website, it's r7reclaim.com. And there's a tab there with coaching and courses. I have another coaching session opening up. And then I'm also going to be adding some marketing and social media content packages for fourth quarter where you'll really make your money for fall and Christmas. And so I would love to get to know you. The first consultation is inexpensive, and we get to visit and find out if it's a good fit for you before you commit to a package. I hope that you have very successful markets this summer, and that they are full of sunshine, yet a nice cool breeze, but not enough breeze to move your tent. Just the perfect market weather. And I promise that is worth the hustle. It's worth making some mistakes and learning. And I hope that you find this to be like a profitable way to grow your business. It sure has been for us. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Tennille. It has been great to meet you and great to hear what you have to say. I know I learned a lot. I hope you all did too. You will receive a follow-up email after this presentation. I'll go ahead and relink to the handout that Tennille prepared for us today, as well as the recording of this workshop, so you can go back and revisit this and kind of pull out some more information that you might have missed the first time. So again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Tennille, and we will hopefully see you again real soon.